Change and maybe in sight our first cold front. We'll talk more about that coming up. We'll focus on the tropics to start. The latest 10 o'clock advisory, Hurricane Lee has strengthened a bit more with winds now of 80 miles an hour. As we said, there is really nothing that is going to hinder further development and continued intensification of the storm. You start to see the convection near the center wane a bit. It tends to do that kind of off and on. It'll fluctuate a bit. It doesn't just maintain that strength all the time. But boy, I tell you what, that convection has been very healthy right around the center of the storm. The expectation is it is going to ramp up in strength over the course of the next 4-5 days. In that 4 to 5 day time frame, though, notice you have winds at 155, then down to 150, then down to 145. It will start to lose a little bit of steam here in terms of forward motion, as it will not necessarily stall completely, but it is going to slow down north of Puerto Rico. This will be where the steering currents kind of change over. Computer model guidance has been pretty tight. In fact, most of the models is more on the northern or eastern end of the forecast cone, but it does include basically all of the model consensus at the moment, which is still fairly tightly wound. North of the Caribbean and an eventual turn toward or away from the East Coast is what is still being projected. In the near term, we do have with the steering currents kind of keeping the storm moving along a west-northwesterly track. Upper high is going to be in front of it as we head towards Sunday and Monday. That may be what slows the storm down to a crawl. Then as we head from Monday into Tuesday, that's when the steering kind of changes. We're watching this upper troughing, which is what will eventually start turning the storm northward, keeping it away from the East Coast, possibly putting Bermuda in the crosshairs as that storm eventually does make the northerly jog. And it will be kind of a sharp jog north by the time we get into early next week. Here's what we know right now. It still looks like it will avoid the East Coast. If I'm along the East Coast, I'm watching it closely, more so in Bermuda. The models, however, are keeping us quiet in the Gulf and the adjacent waters for at least the next 10 days. So that puts us past September 15th. And by October 15th, that is usually when we can start to breathe that sigh of relief. Here is why. Tracking all hurricanes within 100 miles of New Orleans after October 15th, there are only 3, and only one of those was a major. That was Zeta. So after October 15th, the risk of us needing to evacuate for a storm is pretty much non-existent. Now, between September 15th and October 15th is still very much active. Within 100 miles of New Orleans, we've had 15 storms since 1850, and 5 of those majors. So basically a third of all of the storms. So we have about, with the staying fairly quiet through September 15th, we will still have about 4 weeks left to really watch the tropics. After that, again, after mid-October, things really do start settling down. So there is light at the end of the tunnel, but we're not there yet.